Hey there, happy Monday, everyone. Hope your week is started well. Welcome into another edition of Ask Mike. Haven't been in the chair for a while. Happy to be back, Mike.
Yeah, good to have you back. We'll have some fun today.
Yeah, I hope so.
Some really good questions.
Yeah, you said you had some, so let's get it started. All right, our first question, no surprise, is about J.D. Notae leaving for the Hogs basketball team to go pro. So Dana Webb wants to know, how will Notae's decision affect next year's team? We have the number 2 recruiting class coming in. The NCAA tournament, it's been proven that 5-star rookies need teammates who've been to the dance before.
And it's a well-taken point because that is true. But that's why we've seen Eric Musselman, and we don't know this for sure. We just hear things about who he's going after in the portal. But we do know that he brought in the kid from Missouri, the Trevin Brazil, who's a 6'9", 6'10" athletic forward type to go in. And if he ends up playing with Jay Will, that'll be 2 guys in there to battle like that. And he's also going after the #1 rebounder in Division I. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that kid's name, but I think right now that kid's trying to decide if he's going to go pro or not. But they could end up with him. And then what we do know from just looking at these various Twitter feeds of players that are in the portal, Arkansas has been mentioned by a point guard who's in the portal, and has said Arkansas has contacted him among some other schools. And then there's a combo guard, the same thing, and there may even be like a small forward that they're looking at. So he's very active in the portal, which tells me he is trying to bring in some experienced guys to mix in. And then you can't overlook, if Au'Diese Toney stays, okay, you're talking about their best defender coming back with 4 NCAA tournament games experience. Then Devo, that's 8 games. So now you're up to 12. And if you get Jay Will back, you got 20 NCAA tournament games combined with 3 guys on your team. Yeah. So I think he's got the experience coming in, and I think he does get that concept that you can't be what Kentucky does and just go with these one-and-dones. You've got to mix some veterans in with one-and-done type guys, or you're going to have problems. Yeah,
there are 2 factors here. A couple years ago, 2 years ago, when he brought in that freshman class with Jay Will and Devo and Moses Moody and KeKe, who is our next question, he still brought in Justin Smith and Jalen Tate and all those guys. But then also you got to remember there's scholarship numbers that are involved too. And as Musselman brings all of these people in, we hate to see J.D. Notae leave, but you got to look at scholarship numbers, and Muss is playing a really good game of chess with what he has and what he wants.
Isn't it amazing that he recruits as well as he does, but he also works the portal?
For sure, absolutely. All right, as mentioned, KeKe guard KeKe Robinson hitting the portal last week. Bobby Hitch says, watched him in high school. He was always one of the best guards on the court. Always thought he would get more playing time. I would never question Muss, though. Will he get an opportunity with a Power 5 school, I believe?
Yeah, I think it was in 2020, maybe November. First game he played, he scored 15 points. And he looked good through December. I mean, there was nothing there to indicate to us that he wasn't going to be anything but a really talented freshman. In fact, of the newcomers that year, he was the one that really stood out early. Then he fractured a bone in his foot, had to sit out the rest of the year. There was a long rehab involved, came back, kind of was behind, because we know that Muss doesn't just coach these guys during season. They got stuff they're doing in the off season, and you can get behind real fast. And I think he just came back. They tried to put him in a few times in December, even in January at times. And when he got on the court, he just wasn't producing. So I think he did the right thing. I agree with what was said about him, especially coming out of high school. And sometimes what you need is a restart. And I'm guessing that wherever he goes, he will get a restart, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he does very well, and we hope he does.
Yeah, I do too, and I think a great example of that is Ethan Henderson. I mean, he was one of the best players coming out with Isaiah Joe that year in the state of Arkansas. Just didn't get the opportunity I think maybe he should have here. Goes to Texas A&M and gets great playing time and a big part of that team. So hope the best for KeKe as we do with all of these guys. Same with Chance Moore too. Hope he finds a spot where he is successful. All right, Oliver Palmer said you mentioned several times that Coach Muss needed to land a point guard for next season. Watching the McDonald's All-American game, it looked to me that he's got 3 of them coming in.
When I was talking to some of the recruiting guys, especially Kevin McPherson, I kept asking because I made a point about this. That one of the two problems they had this year, shooting was one issue, but the lack of a true point guard. I think J.D. Notae did his best to try to become one, but there were times when it just wasn't working for him. And I'm like, are they going to get a true point guard? And I kept being told, some combo guards, guys that can do both. But then when it was announced right before the McDonald's All-American game that Anthony Black had indeed committed to Arkansas, he's a 6'7" guy, and I really watched him in that game. And yes, he's a 6'7" point guard. He can do all the things a point guard needs to be able to do. I mean, he can dribble in traffic. He can set guys up with assists. He can see because he's 6'7". He can see guys and spot them with passes. But he's also a really good shooter, outside shooter, and can drive to the basket and score. So he's really just an all-purpose, really talented combo guard. And then Nick Smith Jr., come on, he's their highest-rated recruit coming in. He's 6'3", 6'4", but he can do all of that stuff, and I knew that. I had seen video of him. And so I knew he could do all the stuff that we just talked about with Anthony Black. The guy that surprised me was Jordan Walsh, because I sort of thought of him as a kind of a, maybe not just a gigantic power forward, but a guy with muscle that could go in and do the thunder dunk and really attack the basket. And he's really more of a fluid kind of guy that floats around. He's a heck of a point guard. We saw him do it. I saw him do it in the McDonald's All-American game. I saw him do it in that prep school national championship game where I saw him take a rebound and go coast to coast in transition and dunk it, going through all those people. I've seen him 2 or 3 times do a half-court bounce pass in transition right to somebody under the basket. There's no question in my mind at various times in the game, he ends up with the ball in his hands. He doesn't have to start looking around going, where's my point guard? He can just become one. So they've got 3, I think, really guys that can do that. Plus, as I mentioned earlier, there's at least indication that Muss is going after an experienced point guard. So I think they'll be fine at the point, and I think he solved that problem for next year.
That's good to hear. All right, Dr. Sarks wants to know, what are your thoughts on Mike Neighbors' comments about preferring the experience over winning 2 tournament games? I can't imagine Muss or any other successful coach making a statement like that, especially after getting blown out for the 2nd straight year.
Not sure exactly that that's what he said. I think that's the explanation there is kind of mischaracterizing. It's a mischaracterization of what he said. However, I will point out that I had conversations with Nolan Richardson about this on more than one occasion, and he told me flat out, you cannot coach women the way you coach men. He tried to do it on a professional level. He said I was a total failure. He said you've got to recognize that you cannot motivate them the same way. You've got to treat them differently. And somebody like Mike Neighbors, who has worked under some of the best head coaches and then became one himself, I mean, he's got a lot of experience. The fact that he's basically saying, when we go to these NCAA tournament venues, I want them to have fun. I want them to enjoy what they're doing. I don't think, Muss is legendary among the media, those of us in the media. We know he's a tough guy behind the scenes. He may be smiling on Twitter and all that stuff all the time, but you get him in a practice session, and he is hard on them. And I'm absolutely convinced you could not do that to a women's team. Maybe a really good, well-respected women's coach like Pat Summitt could do that. Maybe they would take it more from a woman. But I don't think a guy could get in there and coach them that way. And I think he knows that, and I think he's going to continue to coach that way. And I don't think their lack of success the last 2 years in the tournament has anything to do with what we're talking about here. I think he's had injuries. He's had a lot of bad luck. Yeah. He's had some hit the portal now, and one notable girl had to drop out and stop playing basketball. He's had a lot of tough luck, but he's got some good players coming in.
I also want to point out, this comment was made before the SEC tournament in Nashville. And so I think in that situation specifically, he was saying, we're going to have a good time in Nashville. We're going to have some experiences in Nashville. And if we don't win a game in the SEC tournament, that's okay. I don't think he necessarily meant it for the NCAA tournament. They were two different events. Because he's not prioritizing fun over winning by any means. He's just saying, I'm done treating my kids in a bubble, and we're going to do more than just sit in a hotel room. I mean, you saw that with Eric Musselman during the NCAA tournament. They went to Niagara Falls. They went around this San Francisco. They're having fun, too. So even though didn't say it,
you could make an argument. Oh, they didn't beat Duke because they went on the day before.
They're on a trolley.
I think they went out the day of the game and did some stuff, didn't they?
I don't know. I mean, it was a
he was
later
out and
tip,
about, and you could say, oh, he's not serious about the game, but that is the way you coach these days, and it is especially the way you coach on a women's level. I think it's what Nolan told me, and I would trust him with just about anything he said.
But Mike Neighbors wouldn't be in the position he was and have the success that he has as a complete overall resume if he didn't care about winning.
Yeah.
All right, to baseball, where McCamish, thank you, says, I guess I'm being a bad fan, but I was really disappointed in Arkansas losing Game 3 against Mississippi State. They played so well in the first 2 games, but came up short at the plate in some key situations in Game 3, and it cost them. What do you think?
I don't think it indicates that you're a bad fan. In fact, Dave Van Horn essentially said the same thing after the game. I think he was very happy the way they played those first 2 games. In fact, that may have been their best 2 games of the year, because a lot of the wins they've had this year remind me of last year. Remember all those nail-biter wins they had where they needed Kevin Kopps to keep shutting people down at the end of games because they couldn't drive in runs, and then finally they'd do it? So they've had a lot of games like that. Those first 2 games against Mississippi State were laughers. I mean, you could just, you know how I am during games, so I could just sit back and go, so what? That was good. But then you get into Game 3, and it's set up on paper like they're going to get this sweep, because they had maybe their best, at least statistically, their best starting pitcher, and then their best bullpen guy. I'm thinking, okay, you got it made. But one thing about Mississippi State, they are a home run hitting team. And the best thing about the first 2 days is they limited them to 1 home run. They came in with 43 on the season. And it was Arkansas hitting the home runs. But they started hitting them on day 3. And so twice, 3 times, I think Arkansas had to come back and tie the game. The frustrating part of that game was that, once again, I think it was the bottom of the 8th, the bottom of the 9th, and the bottom of the 11th. They had a chance to win that game, and they didn't do it. And so we're back almost at square one with this thing I keep talking about, which is they just keep coming up in critical situations with runners at second and third, bases loaded, 1 out, no outs or whatever, and good hitters get up there and don't deliver. It's got to be concerning to Dave Van Horn. Now, if you look overall where they're at, I think they got a 2-game lead in the West. You'd say, well, that's really good. Here's the issue. The West is down a little bit this year, and you keep looking over at Tennessee in the East. I do think also a lot of fans, like this fan, are probably kind of comparing these guys to last year's team. And last year's team was number 1 almost the entire season, so that's kind of a tough situation to be in.
They're number 2. Huh? They didn't drop off. They're number 2.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's hard.
But you're not number 1. You're not like they were last year, almost the entire year.
Hog fans don't like who's number 1 at the moment, but that's okay.
That's right. But the point is, I think there's a little bit of comparing to last year. And there's no question there's some guys like Robert Moore who aren't delivering at the plate so far this year but who knows? He could break out this weekend and suddenly just be dynamite from here on out. But that's why I think you get some fans are still kind of questioning, because the head coach is doing that. He's not jumping up and down and going, hey, look what we're doing. He's not beating his chest. Anytime he gets in front of the fans, he's always saying, hey, we didn't do this well. We didn't do that. And he said, I'm disappointed. He said that after the game. Yeah,
he did. And look, he's like to your point, he has said, look, we're not perfect right now. We're just happen to just win games somehow, some way. And that's all that matters. I do want to point out, I get the frustration, man. I was watching the bottom of the 9th. You got bases loaded and 1 out, and you don't score any runs. And it was driving me bonkers. I was like, oh, my gosh. But then the small ball execution so well.
It was good.
That's kind of a shining spot if you're looking for something positive in Game 3.
After that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You did your job playing small ball. Now get them around. Absolutely. Okay. I lost my chart. Here I am. All right. Jocko says, I am at the Friday Mississippi State game and have to say I'm disappointed. 16 boxes have little to no one. The new open air boxes in right field are empty. Hog Heaven behind the home plate has 15 people. Hog pen full. Home plate and sections behind third base dugout a third full, hopefully late arriving.
Okay, this was posted on Hogville, and I'm getting the impression he did it with his phone before. Now, you and I were out there on Friday.
We were.
The game started at 6. We're out there at 6:15, 6:20 doing live shots, and we're seeing lots of people come in. So a part of what he's noticing is just the late arriving crowd, which you're going to get if you have a 6 o'clock game on a Friday. Because it was a lot fuller than that by the time the game got into the second or third inning. However, I was there for the whole game. I will acknowledge I found myself going, man, this does not seem like a typical SEC West type atmosphere. But then I thought about it later on, and especially after watching the Saturday game where it was almost full, and then Sunday had a pretty good crowd. I remember, okay, come on now, what's it like? This early in the season when the temperatures aren't in the 70s, you're probably not going to have those bursting at the seams, 11,000 seat full type crowds. That's not going to happen until late in the year, especially if you're playing somebody that you got to beat them to stay on top in the West. So I'm not ready to pronounce this ticket policy as the reason why this is happening. I want to go through the rest of the season and see how this goes. Now, look, there are complaints. I hear them all the time and I read them on Facebook. And I'm not saying they aren't valid, that the athletic department made a mistake by doing what they did and raising the prices so dramatically and getting some of these football boosters to come in and give big donations. But I'm not ready to say that's some sort of a permanent thing either, because that's what a lot of the fans that got mad and now aren't going to games and gave up their tickets, that's sort of what they're talking about among each other on Facebook, because I read that stuff. And it's like, they're going to see what's going to happen. Well, I don't know that yet. I mean, I still say if you win, you win, you know, regardless of what the policy is, regardless of what they did was unfair. I still think if this team is winning at this level, you're still going to see it almost full. And I'm not convinced that what we saw in that Mississippi State series was a reflection of the policy. It might just be a little too early in the season.
Yeah, possibly. It's a good approach. All right. Razors 85 makes the point about empty seats on Friday. Try to get tickets for the weekend for 4. Nothing going Friday or Saturday. Ended up with Hog Pen on Sunday. The right field area would only let you get 1 ticket. Secondary market is ridiculous. $50+ for the outfield baselines. Dugout to home were $150 to $200 each.
Yeah, now that's this fan's explanation for why you've got empty seats. Now look, I can't swear that this is going on because I never tried to buy a ticket in my life. I get in on a press pass. It doesn't cost me anything to go in. I go in, the guy goes, here's your press pass, and I'm in there.
Yeah.
So I haven't checked around to find out what it would cost to get a ticket. Again, all I know is when I read people's Facebook pages and I see this going on, and what most of them are saying is, yeah, I got a friend that still has season tickets. He's got a lot of money. He isn't going this weekend. He gave me his tickets, or he's going to sell me his tickets at face value. But if you're just out there in the market for tickets and you don't have somebody that's going to help you out, that's what I'm reading, is that these ticket prices are enormous. So in many cases, I think what's happening is if you've got season tickets but you don't decide to go, and you either don't try to sell your tickets or don't give them to somebody else, there's no way to buy these things at a reasonable price. So a lot of people are going, I'll just stay at home rather than pay that kind of money. So I think that looks like to be a legitimate complaint.
Yeah.
The prices have just gotten so crazy for some of these games, and it could get worse if we have bigger games down the road.
Yeah. Didn't the university set up something where if you don't want your tickets, you can trade them through the university so that you are paying face value?
Yeah, that started with Musselman, and it's a good idea. But whether or not it works in practice, I think there's some suggestion that what's going on here is these people have paid so much for their tickets that if they decide not to go, they're going to get a lot for the ticket.
I know, but that just seems wrong.
It does seem wrong, but it's their tickets. They can do whatever they want with them.
That's so true, but I hate it. All right, other traditional SEC West baseball powers have even bigger issues, according to Pork Ryan, who says, watch the last 2 LSU games, and it's 50% at best behind home plate. Seems to be a problem everywhere.
Don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think it's a problem everywhere. I think it's a problem where you have these big stadiums, like LSU has. Their stadium is what? Almost 11,000.
I don't know. Yeah, okay.
Arkansas is around 11,000. I think Mississippi State's 13 or 14. So when you got these programs that are traditional baseball powers in the SEC, and because of that, they've got these big stadiums. If you drop off, which LSU has done, A&M's dropped off some. And then that's when you start seeing the empty seats because, number one, they're paying higher prices to go to baseball anyway these days. And if their team's not winning, and then there's a third factor here, and that is you can now watch, if you've got ESPN Plus, you can watch almost every game, even road games on TV. So why are you going to go if it's going to cost you a lot of money and you're LSU and you used to, remember how LSU fans just go to Hoover and just take that place over? Well, they're not winning that way anymore. So it's like, ooh, it's a downer on the fan base. So I think that's why you're seeing empty seats at LSU. I don't think that's what's going on at Arkansas, and I hope we don't find out because the only way we would find out is if they went in the tank and started losing games and finished in the middle of the pack. And then, yeah, you might see a lot of empty seats, but it would be that way anywhere where you have a giant stadium that you want to fill up. You're charging a lot of money, and if your team's not winning at an upper level, if you're not right up there at the top of your division.
Yeah, we don't need to experience with any of that at Von Walker Stadium, for sure. All right. LR Tackett says, Tennessee is smoking the competition so far. If they keep this up, will they run away with the SEC title and would end up headed for a College World Series championship? But what about this illegal bat stuff? Is Vitello a cheater? I'm so happy someone asked about the sticker because I want to know what Mike thinks about the sticker.
Okay, let's give a little background. You have this Tennessee-Vanderbilt series, #1 versus #2 in the East. It's at Vanderbilt, supposedly a sellout, although I read some stuff that it wasn't totally full. But right off the bat, Tennessee's this home run hitting team, so this they got one of their players, Jordan Beck, one of their best power hitters. He comes up and hits a home run, maybe in the first inning. Well, he comes around home plate, and Tim Corbin's out there, and he's talking to the umpires, and Vitello's like, what's going on here? And they're looking at the bat, and all of a sudden, the guy's ruled out. Now, what happened there? Well, this was a statement, we're going to show it, released by the SEC, and it says, in pre-series bat testing, a sticker with the logo of the opposing team is placed on illegal bats. But there was a sticker on the bat in question, but it was not an appropriate sticker on that bat. It was a sticker from a midweek game, therefore the bat was deemed illegal. Okay, but there's apparently a lot more to it than just that. Why did Tim Corbin come out there and ask to have that bat examined? Well, he was asking.
Did the catcher, I thought the catcher saw it. I'm
well,
sorry. Well, anyways, I'll listen. Yeah,
listen to this explanation because he was Vanderbilt's coach was asked about it, and this was his statement. It has been a part of what's been going around during the course of the week in terms of the SEC and us talking about it. It has been out there. It's made sense to do it. So look, he's basically saying I was in conversation with the SEC office before this series ever started. Well, what are they talking about? They're saying, hey, are these guys using illegal bats? And apparently the SEC office didn't go, no, you're crazy. They're going, okay, yeah, maybe. So he's basically saying, so I decided to test it right off the bat. Okay? Now, here's where
sorry, that's why I was laughing.
So now here's where
it
gets really interesting because Vitello comes out there, and if you watch this video, they're showing him the bat clearly to explain to him, hey, this sticker on here is for your midweek game. It's not for this game. But he tries to get them to give him the bat back, even though he knows the rule is if a bat's ruled illegal in a game, they've got to have it examined. But he wants it back. So that has all these Vanderbilt fans and anybody that's a fan of any SEC school that's not Tennessee going, the guy's cheating. He was trying to hide the bat. He didn't want them to examine it. So Vitello, then, this is all conspiracy theory. This is what he's trying to place it out as conspiracy theories. So this is what he said after the game. And he's trying to be sarcastic here, right? And he says, I don't even know that Jordan Beck should be at the University of Tennessee. He forged his transcript. He is actually a 35-year-old man named Mike Honcho. He just shows up to practice every day, and he's a good kid, so we put him in the lineup. That's his way of saying, hey, you want conspiracy theories? Here's where we're really cheating. We're using a guy named Mike Honcho that's not even who he's supposed to be. And he's making a joke. The issue is, what does the SEC office think about him using this kind of a humor, making a joke about something they clearly took seriously?
That's hilarious.
Now, here's the bottom line. I haven't heard anything, and maybe if we've got somebody that has, we'll address it next week. I haven't heard anything about the bat and whether it's been examined. I'm guessing that it was just an inadvertent thing. They didn't get the right sticker on there. And if they examine this bat and say, yeah, it was a legal bat, then there's no issue. They won the game anyway without it. They won the series. They swept the series. If you're trying to make the point that Tennessee is only winning because they're cheating with their bats, their pitching staff is the best in the SEC. He's put together an unbelievable team.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing when this is all said and done, it's going to be a big to-do about nothing. But if they were to come back and say, we've examined this bat and it's not legal, then there's all kinds of issues there.
If it passed for a midweek game, it should be passing for an SEC
But what some people have
series,
suggested on the internet is Tennessee took a sticker off of a midweek bat and stuck it on there, trying to get this bat into the game.
Well, if they're smarter, they should have taken the Vandy sticker that's supposed to be on their bat for the SEC series and put it on that bat, not a midweek one. Come on, use your brain. You can examine it and then move it over.
That's what's being kicked around out there.
I read that a catcher saw. Anyways, regardless, Stickergate had me cracking up on Friday.
It
but
is
also,
Stickergate.
If any Arkansas fan, I'm just going to throw this out there. If any Arkansas fan wants to complain about Tony Vitello cheating and everything, Mike, you make an excellent point. The way that Tony Vitello has recruited, and it was not long ago where Tony Vitello was recruiting the same way here at Arkansas.
Exactly.
So don't question Tony Vitello's recruiting experience because he knows how to recruit. Okay,
Exactly.
That's all I have to say about that. Let's talk football. If Malik is successful at another position, do you think Cade or Lucas assumes the backup position? That is from Blood Red Hog.
First of all, fans are making a mistake. He's not been moved to wide receiver. Here's what I saw when I was out there the other day. They've got a special package for Malik Hornsby. They moved him out as a flanker, kind of a receiver flanker type. And they had several options there. He could come around behind KJ Jefferson, could pitch the ball back to him, come around and use his speed around the corner, or he could look like he was going to do that and then go upfield and they'd throw him a pass. Apparently, in at least some of the live drills that they ran after I left, he did catch a long pass, and everybody was impressed with that. But this notion that he somehow is now, if he doesn't win this backup quarterback job, that he's just going to become a permanent wide receiver, I don't think that's true. I think he's going to remain a quarterback, and there's nothing from what we've seen to indicate that they are moving him to wide receiver. So what about the race for backup quarterback? Well, it's a three-man race, and the guy that, if you just read between the lines, first of all, Sam Pittman said this on the radio the other day, and then he's made a comment about it since then after watching him practice. This kid from South Florida, the walk-on, who at one time started off at North Carolina, he's got a lot of game experience. I looked at his video when he came in, and people are making a mistake because they got him as a walk-on, that he's just a walk-on. Well, he's technically a walk-on now, but if he wins that job, I don't think he's going to stay a walk-on. What I noticed about him was that he's just really good. He moves well. He can throw the ball on the run. He's really savvy, and he's apparently done this so far in some of these workouts. So I'm not saying he's the backup guy, but if you're talking about the three-man race, based on what Sam Pittman said, this kid has really impressed some people.
I like to hear that. All right, Rob's 4516 says, I read a quote from Rocket Sanders recently saying he had to sit out practice after absorbing a helmet-to-helmet hit. Since a targeting call can have such a big impact on the course of a game, do you know what the coaches do to emphasize avoiding targeting in practice?
Generally, what they do is you see these guys wearing green jerseys.
Yeah.
A green jersey means don't run over this guy and tackle him full speed tackling. Don't tackle him to the ground. Don't go up and do a helmet-to-helmet on him. If you just grab him and hold him. Okay, that's the main way they do that. Now, there are these guys usually, and I've never figured this out. It's my fault. I should have asked. But I've seen these offensive and defensive linemen wearing these helmet covers, which I think is a terrific idea. Here's the problem with helmets. If you go all the way back to when I was in high school, and you think about Arkansas's players in the 60s, a lot of those guys have died from Alzheimer's. There have been 5 or 6 of them. I was at a golf tournament a few years ago of ex-Razorbacks, and I'm following around getting shots, and there was one group coming this way off the tee box and another way coming this way off another tee box, and they all seemed to hit their golf balls in the same area. So they all came together at one time, and there's like 6 or 7 of these guys, and they started talking, and I'm standing right there. And one of them, a former quarterback, started talking about some guy, some ex-Razorback that had died of Alzheimer's the previous week. He said, I saw him 6 months ago and he was fine. And he was like, guys, this is a time bomb. We don't know when any of us are going to be hit by that. I started thinking, man, I had 2 concussions when I was in high school. One of them had to go to the hospital. It like freaks you out. So what's causing this? Nobody knows for 100% sure. But if you go back to the 60s and they had those helmets, you had a hard shell helmet with a web lining in there. There's no way that you get any give there. So let's go to today's modern helmet. They got all this padding on the inside. They've got these little slots. You've seen them? Little holes. They're not holes, but they're slots. That's designed to make that helmet flex. When helmet to contact takes place, it will flex a little bit, which allows some give in either helmet. But it's still not the right approach. You can take this material they've got that goes on, they really use it on roll bars in autocross racing. If you're wearing a helmet but you happen to hit your head, you get hit from behind and hit your head and it goes back and hits one of those roll bars, they want extra protection there on that roll bar. So they're protected both ways with their own helmet and with the padding on the roll bar. Well, with helmet-to-helmet contact, even with the current helmets, the issue is the hard shell on the outside, because you still collide with 2 hard shell helmets. You don't get any give there. If they had this material on the outside of the helmets, you would have that. So why don't they do it? The only thing I can figure out is the way it looks, because it looks really dumb. Would fans get so mad about that they would demand you go back to the shiny, glossy helmets? Or would they understand that if you put this material on the outside of a helmet, it's going to eliminate these concussions? I don't know.
I don't know.
But to make a long story short, I got sidetracked there, but in practice, most of it, to be honest, is common sense. You're not dumb enough to go helmet to helmet with most of your teammates. Now, I can only assume the thing with Rocket Sanders was just an accident.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of that before. A player getting a concussion in a spring practice when they weren't even doing hard tackling.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Kane Archer, the QB from Greenwood, who visited Arkansas last week. Gardner, Tony, Snow, Ernest wants to know, how old is this guy? 14 or 15 years old? Class of 2026.
Yeah. So
incredible.
There's some sarcasm there. Are you kidding me? How old is this guy? You're already recruiting a kid that you've already offered and had an unofficial visit from a guy that's in junior high, because he's a junior high. I assume he's 14. He's a junior high quarterback. He hasn't played high school yet, so he's got 4 years ahead of him. Why did they already offer him? Well, Missouri's offered him. Dinky Witz has a lot of connections with high school coaches in this area. So he's already offered him. Apparently Michigan's already offered him, and he is the #1 quarterback in that class. Well, what if he stays the #1 quarterback? So 4 years from now, you're talking about having the #1 quarterback in the nation in your back door, in your backyard. What are you just going to sit here and go, well, we didn't think we should talk to him for a while, and then all of a sudden by that time he's looking at other schools. So I like the fact that Muss said, yeah, come on up, and they gave him the royal treatment, and he liked it.
You mean Pittman?
What did I say?
Muss.
Yeah,
it's
Pittman.
okay. Hey, Muss is hollering at all the #1 guys in the state too. It's okay.
Pitt gave him the royal treatment, and the kid liked it. So I'm glad the kid likes Arkansas, because they've gotten a lot of good players out of Greenwood.
I was going to say, all those kids in Greenwood are pretty good kids.
That's right. So, man, I don't have any problem at all with them bringing up a junior high kid and saying, hey, because he's about, what, 5'10", 5'11"? What if he grows to 6'4"?
Yeah, you never know.
With his skills.
Right.
Got to be a reason why he's the #1 guy in that class.
Look, Neighbors basketball, they start recruiting young. They started recruiting Jersey Wolfenbarger when she was a foot shorter than she is right now. You just never know with these athletes. They just shoot right back up. All right. Referring to a civil rights lawsuit filed by the Nation the nation's Collegiate Players Association against Division I schools. Kevin says, I wish they understood the fight is with the NFL and NBA. They are the ones setting the rules that they have to go to college, make those leagues finance minor leagues. Everything should be run like baseball. If you think you're good enough, then go to the pros when you want.
See, I didn't read that lawsuit like that. Maybe I'm missing something here. When I read it, it looked like to me, now this is a civil rights complaint, a lawsuit. So it's mainly for black athletes, but it really would apply to any athlete. And I think what they're trying to do here, and there's been apparently a lower court ruling already that would side with them on this. Probably going to have to go to the Supreme Court. And basically they're saying this, you've got all these athletes that are generating millions of dollars for these big high-profile Division I schools, but the athletes, they're just getting stuff given to them. They're not employees, and that's not the way it should work. If you're generating a product that's for sale by an organization, you should be an employee. And I talked to a guy about it this week and talked to him, and he's like, this would be horrible if this happens. I totally disagree. In fact, I think it might be the solution to a bigger problem right now, which is NIL, because NIL is, so far, has not been very controllable. Here's why I like the idea of making these guys employees, women and men, the student athletes employees of the university. First of all, they only work 20 hours a week. They limit them. That's the NCAA rule. So you're not talking about a full-time employee. They don't have to pay them like a full-time employee. But let's say, to be fair, what they do is they come in and they go to Congress and say, we're going to make this switch. We're going to make these guys employees and the girls. But just like the professional sports, we want a salary cap, because we can't have something where you're just buying players. One school has the ability to bring a quarterback in and give him a salary of $10 million a year, and another can't. You know, we can only give you $500,000. So instead of that, you institute a salary cap, just like the NFL has. And it can be fair, but keep in mind it's a part-time job. So what if you end up with a situation where Arkansas's quarterback, they say to him, okay, we're going to take into consideration that we're giving you tuition, we're giving you books, we're giving you room and board. So that's already built into what you have as an employee. We're giving you extra benefits as an employee. So we're going to pay you $35,000 a year to be an athlete for our program. I think that would hold up. And then if it becomes standardized, then you don't have them using money to buy players. Players then come to a school. Why? Because you got better coaches, because you tend to win. That's why Musselman's recruiting the way he is right now, because he's shown he can get deep into the tournament. He's a former professional coach himself. He's got guys with pro ties as assistant coaches. He's got a recruiting coordinator that was a pro basketball player, and he's selling them on the idea of two things. You come here, we'll win a championship, and we'll get you to the NBA. And that's why kids should go to school, not because, hey, we'll give you more money. Now, here's the other benefit of making them employees, and I bet nobody's thought about this. I want to get your reaction to it.
Okay.
If I'm paying you as an employee of a university, guess what you give up? Your NIL rights. Do you have an NIL rights here?
No.
This program, they can go out and sell it. We're on it.
Yeah.
It's got we've got a logo with my caricature on it, so it's my name, image, and likeness. They can go sell it because they have the rights to it because they hired me to do this kind of stuff.
I see.
And I'm not mad about it. I understand it. So the same thing could be said of these athletes. Hey, we're paying you now. You're an employee. We control your NIL. And then you get NIL totally off the table.
Interesting.
And now you're just, you've done what the pro ranks have done. You're paying somebody, but you have regulated salaries so that no one team has a lot more money available to it than another. And it becomes, again, about going to a school because they can you can win there and they can get you to the next level.
To counter it, question, like pro athletes can sign sponsorship deals. That go out the window?
There would probably have to be some rules on that, but they could allow that if everybody tended to agree with what it was. But I think there would be limits on that.
Yeah, like Coca-Cola.
We'll let you do that. But, you know, for instance, the sale of these shirts. This is what started all this, was the NCAA itself was making money off of pro or college basketball players in a video game. And they were putting their image and their likeness on there, didn't have their names on there, and they were making money off of it. Well, under this arrangement, they'd have every right to do that. Or the school, the jerseys that they're talking about selling now, and the T-shirts with the players' names on them. The school could be the one that makes the money off that because they, again, hire you to produce their product, but they control your image and your likeness. It's very common in the business world for people that hire you to use you in that manner.
Yeah, well, television is a perfect example
exactly.
Of that. Okay, last question. Rad Hog number 1 wants to know, it's okay for school to sell players' jersey. What player is Mike Irwin going to pick?
Okay, I had some time to think about this.
Okay.
First of all, I'm not a wear a jersey guy.
Okay.
You know, you see these guys 45, 50 years old walking around a Lakers jersey or something. That's fine, but I've never done that.
Mike is not going to wear a jersey.
I was a big Red Sox fan when I was a kid. Boston, I have no idea why I'm not anymore, but I've got a buddy that walks around wearing a Red Sox jersey. Okay, that's his business. I don't tend to do that. I do have this red Razorback football jersey. And it's got a big number 5 on it. We all know what that is. I don't remember how I got it. I don't know. I know my wife didn't buy it, but somebody may have given it to me as a Christmas present or a birthday present, or somebody may have said, hey, I got this here. I don't remember. I don't wear it outside running around or going to Walmart or whatever, but I wear it in the house. It's all right. But I would not buy a jersey. But I started thinking what I would do is buy a jersey from one of my grandkids.
Yeah.
Okay, so I started thinking, all right, Clark, my oldest, not into sports, wants to build bridges and be an engineer.
That's great.
So he doesn't care.
Okay.
But I got 2 others.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing here because I have to buy a Christmas or a birthday present and make them happy, right?
All right, so Athens up next.
So I got one of them, and I'm thinking, Connor Nolan. Got to be Connor Nolan. And the other one's going to be Jalen Williams.
Nice.
Okay. Then the 2 granddaughters, they're a lot alike. I'm thinking both of them would want a Jersey Wolfenbarger jersey.
Love it.
Now, this is what I stopped and thought about after I came up to that with that conclusion that that's what I would buy. All 3 of those are River Valley athletes.
How about that?
Now, what's that all about? And then I started thinking, you know, some of your favorite ex-Razorbacks have always been River Valley. I mean, Barry Lunny, a quarterback at Southside, and his dad was won state championships at Southside before he went to Bill. Like those River Valley guys. Well, my wife's brother was on a state championships team at Van Buren. That's River Valley. My wife is a River Valley girl.
Uh-oh.
Her mother's River Valley.
Yeah.
She got an older brother that's River Valley, a sister that was there until recently and now's moved up here. We're just a River Valley family.
Look at you.
And I guess it's just bled over into my grandkids.
There you go. I think that's perfect.
Because they like them fine.
See, I would get myself a 5 jersey football. I love me some Rocket Sanders. I think he's so fun to watch. And then, of course, a little bit of an homage to Darren McFadden. Finn loves number 10. So he's a big Jalen Williams fan. So I'd get Finn a Jalen Williams jersey. And Bellison, I would get her a Michaela Daniels jersey because my daughter is named after my mom's maiden name, Bellison. And my grandparents live in Maryland, and that's where Michaela Daniels is from. So pay a little homage to my grandparents with a little 43 jersey.
We're already trying to figure out what we're going to do now that we can buy players.
Hey, Christmas is taken care of.
Jerseys. That's a good NIL.
There you go. I love it. I love it. All right. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next week.